morning, dear students. This is your Sudha ma'am. Welcome to the 7th session of lesson 2, that is respiration, the energy releasing system. Let's recapitulate our previous session. In our last session, we have studied about production of heat in living organisms and evolution in gases exchanging system. Today, in this session, we are going to discuss about respiration in plants and related to activities, and finally the difference between photosynthesis and respiration. Now let's start with respiration in plants. Plants also respire all the time like other animals. Generally, some students may think that photosynthesis takes place during daytime and respiration during night time. But it is a misconception. Plants breathe all the time throughout their life. The plants get energy through the process of respiration, in which glucose breaks down in the presence of oxygen and form carbon dioxide and water with the release of energy. This energy is used by plants for carrying out various life processes. During photosynthesis, plants take carbon dioxide and release oxygen. But for respiration, they utilize oxygen and release carbon dioxide like other animals. So, in plants, exchange of gases takes place in many ways. It is through stomata, lenticels, surface of roots, and in some plants through breathing roots or aerial roots, and with some special tissue in orchids. Mostly, exchange of gases takes place by stomata. Already we studied about stomata, which are tiny pores present on the surface of the leaf, mostly on the lower surface of the leaf. The stomatal openings leads to a series of spaces and forms a continuous network all over the plant, and these air spaces are lined with water. The oxygen present in the air spaces is dissolved in the water and passes into the cytoplasm of the cells through the pores of the cell wall. Within the cell, sugar is break down into carbon dioxide and water, and energy is also released. The carbon dioxide passes out from the cell to the air spaces and to the outside through stomata. The whole process works by diffusion. Apart from stomata, gaseous exchange takes place through lenticels. Lenticels are the tiny pores which are present on the bark. They are loosely placed and allow the gaseous exchange between air and living cells of the woody stem. And coming to the respiration of roots in the plant, it is occur by diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide through root hairs. The roots of the plant take up air from the spaces between the soil particles. Root hairs are in contact with the air in the soil particles. So, the oxygen in the soil particles diffuse into the root hair and reach all the cells of the roots where it is utilized in respiration. To facilitate air in between soil particles, our farmers plough the field before sowing the seeds, and we often see our gardeners make soil loose by digging around the stems of the growing plants, so as to facilitate more oxygen to the plants. But in some plants, that is the plants which are growing in marshy soils or wet soils where they do not get soil air and are unable to obtain oxygen. So, they are adapted to these waterlogging conditions by having much larger air spaces which connects the stems with roots. Directly the stems are connected with the roots through the air spaces. This makes diffusion from the upper parts much more efficient. And coming to the mangroves, these trees live on tropical coasts of the world. They grow in salt water and their roots are buried in the thick mud that contain little oxygen. In order to get the oxygen, the roots send up spikes that rise into the air and absorb the atmospheric oxygen. To know more about respiration in plants, let us perform two activities. Activity 1, production of carbon dioxide during respiration of plants. Take some sprouted Bengal gram seeds or any other seeds in a wide mouthed glass bottle of around 200 ml capacity. Take a small injection bottle or a small beaker. Pour some lime water, that is calcium hydroxide, in it and place the beaker or this injection bottle in the glass bottle. Prepare another similar set of apparatus by using dry seeds. In one bottle we have taken sprouted seeds and in another bottle we are taking dry seeds. Close the lids of two bottles tightly and leave them undisturbed for 1 or 2 days. Observe the change in the color of lime water in both the sets. The lime water in the beaker containing germinating seeds turn into milky white precipitate. This is due to the reaction of calcium hydroxide with carbon dioxide to form calcium carbonate. This indicates the release of CO2 during the respiration of germinating seeds. There is no change in the lime water of second set which contain dry seeds because dry seeds are inactive and cannot perform respiration. Now moving on to the activity 2. The aim of this activity is to prove that heat is released during respiration. For this activity, take a thermos flask and put some sprouts of Bengal gram or any other seeds. Close the flask with rubber cork with having one hole. Insert a thermometer through the hole of the rubber cork. Make sure that the bulb of the thermometer is in contact with germinated seeds. Record the initial temperature and the temperature of the flask is recorded for every 2 hours. We can observe the rise in temperature. This is due to the heat produced by germinating seeds during respiration. If the same activity is done with dry seeds, the initial and final temperatures remain same because dry seeds are inactive and cannot perform respiration. So, finally, we have learnt that carbon dioxide and heat are released during the respiration of plants. Now, moving on to the last topic, that is the difference between photosynthesis and respiration. The relationship between photosynthesis and respiration is such that the products of one system are the reactants of the other. Photosynthesis involves the use of energy from sunlight and water and carbon dioxide to produce glucose and oxygen, whereas respiration uses glucose and oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, water and energy. To emphasize this point, the equation for photosynthesis is the opposite of respiration. Let us explore some more differences between these two processes. Photosynthesis occurs only in green plants and some photosynthetic bacteria, whereas respiration takes place in all organisms. Photosynthesis takes place in the presence of light, whereas respiration takes place throughout the day, in the presence or in the absence of light. A plant can survive without photosynthesis for few days, whereas no organism can survive without respiration even for few minutes. In plants, only few cells perform this process, that is only chloroplasts. But in respiration, all cells of the organisms perform respiration. It occurs in the chloroplast and it is dependent on light. Respiration takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria and it is independent of light. And in the process of photosynthesis, light is fixed, whereas in respiration, energy is released. Raw materials are carbon dioxide and water, whereas for respiration, it uses carbohydrates and oxygen as raw materials. Oxygen is liberated and carbon dioxide is utilized. In respiration, oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide is released. And coming to the equation, carbon dioxide and water in the presence of light and chlorophyll produces glucose, oxygen and water, whereas in respiration, glucose plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide, water and energy. And finally, photosynthesis is an anabolic process, which means building up complex molecules from simpler ones, and this needs an input of energy. In contrast, cellular respiration is a catabolic process, which means breaks down glucose into smaller molecules and release energy. These are some differences between photosynthesis and respiration. Now, let's summarize today's topics. Today, we have studied about respiration in plants, in which stomata, lenticels, root surface, aerial roots play a major role in exchange of gases, and two activities which confirms the evolution of carbon dioxide and heat during respiration of plants, and finally differences between photosynthesis and respiration. With this, we have completed our second lesson. Meet you in our revision classes. Thank you.